Hey folks, welcome back. And earlier today, there was a Points Guy article about the Chase Sapphire Reserve. Reframing it, this just reads as a please give us some positive press coming from Chase PR. It also features a 45-minute video with the Points Guy and the Sapphire general manager that just plays like an infomercial, highlighting the pluses of points boost and highlighting the edit credit and highlighting Sapphire Dining. No questions asked about the failures of the dining program so far, how the dining program doesn't work for people, why the dining program is so small, what at least is the roadmap for growing the dining program. Because it's one thing to launch a dining program that is as small as Chase's Reserve exclusive tables are through Open Table. It's one thing to launch with that, but at least say we know it's small, but we're going to be expanding, which they tried to do with the Dan's Deal article that came out around the time of the refresh taking full effect, which seemed to have landed on deaf ears because they're coming back out with yet another round of Charm Offensive. When you're doing this level of damage control 6 months after announcing the refresh, that the announcement was bad, the rollout was bad, and now the response, which I thought they were sort of handling okay in October. Now it is mid-December. It's been 6 weeks since this program went into full effect for all Sapphire Reserve holders. A lot of people are not happy, and they just seem to be stepping on landmines. Every time they try to go about fixing this, it does not go well in any way, shape, or form. And it's part of why I'm wearing the Arizona Coyote Desert Dog jersey right now, because this is from an era of the Coyotes that was a very hopeless era. No matter what they did, it just did not work. That's what I'm starting to feel with the Sapphire Reserve response to how things are going. Let's look at it. I'm not going to go into the 45-minute video. I watched it at 2x speed, taking a deep dive into the Sapphire Reserve changes with Brian Kelly and Chase Executive. Brian Kelly being the CEO of the Points Guy. He was the original founder of the website. So in June, Chase announced some significant updates to its popular premium card product, the Chase Sapphire Reserve. The new benefits were effective immediately for those who applied and were approved for the card on or after June 23rd of 2025. But as of October 26th, all cardholders can access the full suite of perks, and they give you a link to the full suite of perks. There was a lot to unpack with these changes, so to help with this endeavor, we went right to the source. Why wasn't this interview, this sales package done June 22nd? Why wasn't this done in October? Why are they just now getting around to doing this 6 weeks after it went into effect for everyone, if not for trying to do a charm offensive of this is all the great stuff with the card? People know what's happening with the card, and the cardholders aren't happy. Your customers aren't happy. And you're responding to this in the fluffiest of ways. Convinced this was put together by Chase Marketing, Chase Public Relations, to bring the guys into the reserve lounge at LaGuardia. So they're doing this at the lounge within the lounge. They don't take time to go out into the expansive and very beautiful lounge that they put together at LaGuardia. No, they're in this very confined space, and it makes sense for recording, and I can give them that. But there's no B-roll shot of the Sapphire Lounge at LaGuardia. It's a 45-minute infomercial just highlighting all the great things about the Sapphire Reserve, what it's still great at, what it was previously great at. It doesn't get into any of the negatives or perceived negatives, or helping to dispel any of the negatives, or doing anything in response to the feedback that's been rolling out. At least the first article that was done to show, hey, we're listening, we are making changes, we are highlighting this and that. Like, the only thing that they did in terms of throwing any sort of cookie crumb to that was highlighting the new select hotels benefit that is also launching on January 1st. This was shot at a point where they had already announced the changes that would be coming to the edit credit, where the edit credit went from semi-annual to you can book this to the two halves of it at any time. Cool. This is not enough. This is not good. that you have to put together the 45-minute infomercial to continue to explain why this is good is not good. Chase Sapphire Masterclass. Cool. We're not clicking play on this. It's 45 minutes. I watched it in 27 minutes, 27 and a half minutes because I watch everything at 2x speed at this point. They go into how they're longtime card holders, both Mr. Kelly and our presenter, that is Nick Ewan. Sorry, Mr. Ewan. They're highlighting part of the discussion centered around the lounge benefits. In fact, we recorded the entire conversation in one of the private suites at the Sapphire Lounge at LaGuardia. Cool. They were quick to point out the ongoing guest privileges offered on both the personal and business Sapphire, which is great. All authorized users can get guest privileges, so you can bring in 2 guests on your personal Sapphire Reserve. You give an authorized user the card, they can bring in 2 guests. The guest is great. This is more of a family travel card than either the American Express Platinum or now the Capital One Venture X, because the Venture X now is at least $125 usury fee to an authorized user to access lounges with, again, no guest access included. That is, you still have to pay for guests. Okay. And then it's $50 a pop with the American Express Platinum card, unless you spend $75,000 through the card. Cool. But depending on how many times you go through lounges, if you go through lounges every single time you're at one of these airports, and they just lost a lounge in Hong Kong, and then they're slowly getting up to speed. They just opened Las Vegas. We're waiting now on LAX and DFW. No news on what's after DFW, right? It would be great to get at least something with intentions, right? There's a 21,000 or 24,000 square foot lounge space at SFO. We don't know yet if Chase has grabbed that or if that's going to Capital One or if one of the other companies will come in and grab it. But either way. In addition, both Sam and Brian touted the new points boost redemption option, which allows Sapphire Reserve cardholders up to 2 cents per point when booking select flights and hotels. This is particularly lucrative at the edit properties. They'd spent the first half of this video waxing poetic on points boost and the edit. When you have to spend 20 plus minutes on the edit and points boost to sell the edit and points boost, maybe they're not the features you think they are. Now, the edit is a great response to FHR. You know what the one problem with the edit is? There isn't enough hotels in the edit. FHR and the hotel collection is something like 3,000 hotels. Now, FHR is probably a much smaller portion of that, but maybe if you did just the edit versus just FHR, maybe they're sort of on par. The edit is about 1,300. You got to get to 15. You got to get to 2,000. You got to add more, right? Then there's points boost. And points boost, the number one issue with points boost is that points boost is a selective 2% back, right? 2 cent per point redemption on select flights, whereas folks who held the card got 1.5 on everything. So it's not as great a sale, as great a pitch when you were getting 1.5 and now you're sometimes getting half a point more, right? More is more. And when you don't get more, stuff like this happens. There was no mention of any of the issues currently hindering the card. There's a lot on the back end. There was mention that they're continually taking in feedback from the calls that come in, make calls. There's AI managing it, managing the recordings. They're getting the feedback in. We'll see what happens. They didn't highlight as much in this interview. The Dan's Deal interview at least gave me some hope, where they're continuing to make changes and there will be more updates and fine tuning and highlighting again that the era of the big refresh is dead. Okay, cool. But I used to work in electoral politics, right? If things weren't going well, you kind of had to throw up some Hail Marys, right? You needed to do exclusive interviews, or you needed to get somebody in who was really friendly to you and ask you softball questions, right? You needed to have something where you're just presenting everyone a puppy. Not really, but metaphorically, this is presenting us a puppy. And don't think for a second that this will mitigate any of the issues that current cardholders are experiencing, that existing cardholders who had to wait 4 months to get access to the new changes, that is going to make them feel better, right? This is not a spoonful of sugar to make the medicine go down. This is not pouring maple syrup down someone's throat just to make them forget that bad thing. The whole program isn't great. I don't know, that was a weird visual, but you know where I'm going with it. This feels like they don't have a rudder, and they don't know where they're going, and they don't know what to do. Much like teams in going to sports, much like teams that are in perennial rebuilds. And teams, when you're in a rebuild, you have to sell one of two things, right? You have to sell hope. It's going to be rough for a couple of years, bottom out. And when we get that generational talent and we're going to build up a core of young players, we're going to get that 1-2 guys who are going to bring us back to the promised land. You know, the Chicago Blackhawks had to tear it all down, and they got Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves, and they built out that team, eventually signing Marian Hossa, and built that team the way that they built that team to win 3 Stanley Cups with that core. Much of that tainted now because of how the organization responded to very horrible things that I'm going to bring up here. You had years of the Washington Capitals after that 90s era of the team kind of falling apart. They went into, we need to go get that generational guy. We need to go rebuild. And they got Nicholas Lindstrom. They drafted Alexander Ovechkin first overall. The Pittsburgh Penguins had to absolutely bottom out, and that's how they got Sidney Crosby, and they started building out the rest of their team. They drafted Evgeny Malkin, then they drafted Crosby, and they got one of the Stahl brothers very early in the draft. I want to say it was Jordan. And then they got Marc-Andre Fleury first overall, and that was the core, and they added Chris Letang. You have to sell hope, right? If you're not selling hope, you're at least selling competitiveness. And the group they're going to get into, all we have to do is get into the playoffs, and once we're there, anything can happen. It's not the best hope to sell, but you're selling hope, right? Or you're selling competitiveness. And right now, I don't know what Chase is selling. And what they think they're selling and what's coming across to me is not the same thing, because to me, this is desperation. This is, we don't know how to fix it, and we really don't know how to stop the criticism. But we're going to present, once again, the joys of points boost. We're going to present the edit once again. We're going to do these little things to try and show how great this program is. And the program can be great. It's everything else that they've been doing around it to lay the groundwork for something else. And I understand that they're laying the groundwork for something else, but they're not showing what that next step is, right? The only thing that's going to fix the Sapphire Reserve mess right now is a well-rounded partner for the Sapphire Reserve in a Sapphire Preferred refresh that quells a lot of the issue, a lot of the shouting that the minority of their cardholders, but the very loud minority, has been doing online for the last couple of weeks. This was a controversial refresh. Hasn't gone well, and they haven't communicated it well, and they were trying, and it felt like they were sort of there. And now 6 weeks later, they're coming out with an infomercial. It's not it. That's just not it. It's not great. The quickest way forward right now is you got to bottom out, and you have to rip the bandage off and let us know what's happening with Sapphire Preferred, how Sapphire Preferred can fix this, and how a 2-card setup with the Reserve and the Preferred, which is what you want to sell cards and what you want to have this ecosystem that you're looking to put forward in the future, because you lifted the 1 Sapphire rule. There's a very clear intention of what you're trying to do. Show us what Sapphire Reserve looks like. Like, you got to just announce the refresh on Sapphire Reserve Preferred. Announce the Sapphire Preferred refresh, and it might be the way to start getting people back on. If you're touching Freedom, give us a sense of what's coming with Freedom. You have to be overly transparent about what's coming down the pipe. because you're losing reputational. You're hurting yourself. You're hurting your reputation. This refresh has gone terribly, and American Express is running laps around you with their platinum refresh, and they're going to come out with their green refresh probably in Q1 of 2026. And that refresh, they don't have to do much with that either. They've got the clear credit on the green card. They'll probably add a Resi credit. They might add one or two other things, but it's not going to be, it's going to be continuing to play off the strengths that they already have. They don't have to do much. And honestly, they could punt that until the middle of next year or the end of next year. That's how far ahead they are in front of Chase reputationally. Chase has to do a mea culpa. And I'm not saying reverse the changes that you made on the Sapphire Reserve. I am saying Sapphire Preferred has to blow the doors off the joint. I don't know that it will. But that is it for this one. If you like what I do, like, subscribe, hype, do all the things. StackYourPoints.com for the Stack Your Points podcast. Call me on the YouTube channel as well for my Stack Your Points co-host. Pinned comment's going to have ways to support me outside of YouTube, but thank you so much for watching. Greatly appreciate it. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.